All right, Chris Popper here in Bangor. I'm joined by Abby Hunt. And Abby, tell us, you are a parent of a Sumner High School student?
I am not actually, Chris.
Okay.
First, thank you for speaking with me this afternoon. I am a parent of a middle school child. I have two sons in school there, and I'm also a former Sumner alumni. I have coached at various levels, and I'm a community member. So that is my connection to the issue at hand.
Okay. What sports have you coached?
I have coached Pee Wee soccer. I have coached baseball. I have coached T-ball. I helped with cheering a long time ago. And so I've had my hand in different levels.
All right. Last night, the RSU 24 Board of Directors nixed winter sports. So that impacts swimming, cheering. Sumner is the defending Class C state champions in cheering, basketball, and any track and field. But I don't think there were some indoor track players, participants. So effectively, they are not allowed to participate, and even not allowed to participate in the combined wrestling and swimming with Ellsworth School. And I know it's especially hard given the fact that they nixed, and it's even harder because these meetings are being held virtually. So one would assume that had this been a regular meeting and with public participation, that it would have been filled with parents wanting to speak to the issue.
Yes, in the fall, when the fall sports was on the agenda, the opinion from the community was that they wanted to see fall sports go ahead. They felt that the risk was low in the population of student athletes. They felt that other districts were effectively putting contingency plans into place. They felt that the NPA guidelines showed that it could be done, and they spoke quite positively for trying to get that to happen. There was a petition related, and they had also been present in virtual meetings to say, listen, this is what we're hoping to achieve. We fully understand that the staff and administration are doing all that they can to protect students. We're working with a challenging situation. I don't think anyone can say that this isn't thrown curveballs to everyone. This has been a hard time. But I felt that in the fall, the opinions of the student athletes, the parents, the community members, they weren't heard. They felt very frustrated that their students and their children were seeing all their other peers play. They were seeing other districts play. They were seeing towns and communities supporting their students and doing all that they could to effectively make that happen. And I think that left opening of the sports was discussed. I think that left a bitter taste in their mouth from how the fall had gone. And so I don't see that there was, I guess, much community participation when it came to the meeting of winter sports.
I know that RSU 24 spans two counties. Yes. So you have part of it being in Washington County, some of the schools, and some of it being in Hancock County. And that in itself poses a challenge because Washington County has been designated yellow, which means that they cannot participate in the extracurricular activities until it goes back green. And that's a difficult problem that Sumner faces.
It is it's unique to the issue. They're definitely in a position of they need to help the students that are in the county that is green, and they also need to provide the same to the county that is in yellow, and that is a hard situation. But I feel that the old adage, if there is a will, there is a way. and so many others are working with, with the issue as well. And I feel that too, we didn't need to necessarily make a decision. I know other schools were making a decision last night, but that wasn't to say that we had to make a decision last night. We could have waited. We could have pushed back until county possibly went green.
Yeah, I mean, or even there is I guess the vote could have been, were Washington County to be able to go back to green, then you could participate, rather than just saying, no, we're done.
Right.
Because, the guidelines say if a county is yellow, then everything has to stop. I know that there were, I think at least one other vote back in the fall. So initially back in early September, they voted against it and then reconsidered. And there was a thought that might have passed, but that was, I mean, I guess I brought everybody's hopes up and then dashed them again. What do you say to the board members that, and I wasn't able to watch the meeting last night, but why do you think they voted against it, and what do you say to them?
I think truthfully, the decision, Chris, was made a long time ago. I don't feel necessarily that going into the board meeting last night, the board members were open to having, the thought that they could find a way to participate in winter sports. I feel that the challenges presented to them were not something that they wanted to work with. I know that they're trying. They're trying to represent the communities. That is what their job is. But that's not happening. That's not happening. There was votes that were cast in September for the fall sports that were no's, and then there were votes that were cast for winter sports that turned into yeses. And we're facing two very different situations: outside sports versus indoor sports. And I think my focus would be, we're facing challenges, and our kids are facing challenges, and their mental health, their emotional health is really suffering. There's been studies that have come out since this pandemic just stating, there was a study from the University of Wisconsin that said they pulled over 3,000 student athletes that dealt with their seasons being canceled in the spring. And out of those 3,000 students, 2/3 of that group mentioned higher levels of depression, higher levels of anxiety, stress, not wanting to continue with their day-to-day activities where they didn't have an outlet. And that's only increasing. That is only increasing as the days go by, as the sports seasons go by. And it puts such a strain on these students who are going to school, doing the right thing. They're trying to make things work. Parents are trying to make things work for these kids, and they're looking all around and seeing other kids being afforded these opportunities that they're not. They're seeing other students participate, have an outlet, be mentally focused, provide a stability to these kids that they're so lacking right now with everything else going on. And I would just hope that the board members would look at that and say, we need to focus on all around these kids, not just the educational piece, but we need to focus on a well-rounded student.
I know, and I mean, I am of the let them play. I mean, come right out. I'm in favor of the kids playing where it's possible. I mean, I don't think that anyone wants anyone to get sick. I mean, I think we can all agree with the premise that no one wants anyone to get sick. And hopefully everyone is looking out for the best interests of the school community, being teachers, staff, and students. I know that there are already restrictions put in place by the MPA and that no fans would be allowed. There is a limit of 50 people in the gym. that masks must be worn at all times if playing basketball. And yet with all of that, kids are resoundingly say, yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll play with masks. We'll do whatever we need to be able to play these sports. And I just feel so badly with, now you've had essentially a whole cycle, because with spring 2019 canceled and fall 2020 and now winter 2020 in RSU 34. That was a bunch of numbers. We've just wiped out a whole year for these kids. And I think back even at almost 60 years old, I remember my high school career, as poor as it was. I mean, but I remember playing rugby for the Bermuda Junior International team. I remember fouling out in my last high school game of basketball. I mean, these are memories that I have, 42 years later. And these memories are, yeah, it's a pandemic, and we wish the world wasn't like this, but these are memories that these kids are not going to have.
Right. Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, Chris. Touching on the point you said, I have those memories, and it's one of those things where the truth of the matter is there's a lot of kids that may not go on to higher education. They may not go on to college. They may not play a Division 1, 2, or 3 sport. They may not go on to that. But what they will go on to is years down the road, getting together with their friends, reminiscing about those glory days, those times spent together where Right. They remember everything that they did in that season. Or, hey, do you remember when so-and-so struck out in the bottom of the ninth? It's going to be those things that sit with these kids. And unfortunately, what they're going to leave with, some of these seniors, is let down. They're going to leave with the failure of it working. The guidelines are put in place by the NPA that weren't, we didn't give that a chance. We did not give it a chance to work. And I think that's what's really going to weigh on these. We're definitely, yeah, like you said, we're in a pandemic. Things are not normal. But giving these kids some bit of normalcy in this time is so important. They're in the lowest risk category. The Maine CDC has put out its numbers as of today, saying that under 20, 1,500 cases, over 1,300 have recovered. There's 0 deaths. The CDC is saying that quarantines can be reduced from 14 down to 7 days. There's information coming out daily saying that their risk is much lower, and they're
Right.
willing to do these things. They're willing, like you said, to wear the mask. They're willing to not have so many spectators. I can speak personally. I had my 2 older, children. They played travel clubs all fall long. One played soccer and one practiced, football, which was allowed to have practices inter squad, and they did that all fall successfully. Their coaches were fantastic. They put plans in place. Their communication with the parents was very thorough. They said, these are our guidelines. For instance, my son played travel soccer, and we were allowed one parent at the field, must be masked up, not allowed to be, associating with the other parents in the group, had to stay 6 feet apart.
Right.
And we went by those guidelines. We adhered to those guidelines strictly because we knew these were our kids. We loved our children. We wanted them to be happy and healthy in all aspects. And so we adhered to them. It wasn't, and I feel that the student athletes and the parents would most certainly adhere to those measures put in place. And even to the instance of saying, listen, if you can't come to the gym, okay, we'll find a way to stream these. We will find a way to have these available to the parents. And I can guarantee most would say, that's fine, not a problem. We want our kids to be put first in this situation as much as possible.
And I know the frustrating thing is that when you can say, all right, we're following the guidelines, but yet you can, everybody can go to Walmart and, you're going to have well a couple hundred people in the Ellsworth Walmart at any one time. And despite the fact that it says that masks are required, you can walk up and down that aisle and you will see people without masks, or they will be wearing a mask that's down around their chin, and you know, calling that good. And it does seem like as ironic as a case as it is.
Yeah, and I think if you popped into Hannaford on Wednesday before Thanksgiving, the lines were deep, and if Tim Max was fairly busy on Black Friday, from what I've heard. So
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to sit here and say, you know, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. We can't say to our kids, listen, we're not going to allow this, but it's okay for you to mingle, you know, outside. You know,
Well,
you can go to
and,
Walmart, you can do all these things.
and all these kids were wearing masks and were working throughout the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I know that despite the CDC suggestions that everybody stay home, kids are getting together, people are getting together.
And wouldn't it be safer to be done within the confines of the guidelines and with the safety measures put in place by the school and by, you know, the state of Maine? If they're asking for these things to be adhered to, wouldn't that be the safest option, is to do it inside of that?
Yeah, you'll get no argument from me there. You get no argument from me there. All right. Well, is there anything you want to add? I mean, I don't know if there's an opportunity for the RSU 24 board to reconsider. I don't know where this goes from here.
I think in closing, I would just hope that the board members understand that their job is to represent all the community members. That is their job. Their role is to look at the issue from all aspects and understand that we understand they have a job to do and that it's hard to do it, you know, but to see that these kids are suffering. Parents are doing all that they can to support them educationally, support them emotionally, mentally, and we're losing this physical spot of it. We're losing the active, you know, kids that are happy, that have an outlet. They have an outlet at the day that they go to. They have a place to be that's safe. They have a community behind them. And I think, truthfully, there has been, you know, concern about not having the support from the faculty, and at the end of the day, these kids are going to school and they need to feel supported. They need to feel that their voices are heard. They need to feel that, you know, they're getting some normalcy within this abnormal time.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Chris.